recording it so others can be part of it. Well, before we start our final tasting of the French box, the diploma tasting of our French wines, just would like to say again that the Italian box is ready. If you wanted to purchase, I think we will discover some interesting wines of Italy, which it could fall in the exam, and they will probably be tasted during the classes. So I think it will be interesting. So it's available. So if you don't have the link, let me know, because it's not public on the website. Okay. So tonight we have 2 red wines, and they are from France. And the first thing that you should ask yourself is, can I perhaps guess where? Well, first thing, what are the regions in France that produces red wines? Is there any AOC that doesn't produce a red wine that you can just discard straight away?
Any AOC?
Yeah.
Or region, wine region?
Yeah, region, yeah. Region,
okay.
and AOC, you know, appellation, yeah. We can definitely say it's not champagne, right?
Yes.
I can discard champagne. Is there any other champagne that is unlikely perhaps to have really dark colored wines? Like we could straight away just go and say, it's definitely not those regions.
Alsace, I don't think it's very likely.
I think it's interesting and very short and very correct point. Alsace, I could straight away just go and say, definitely not coming from Alsace. Any other AOC or region that I could say, perhaps I'm not gonna consider straight away, but I could.
Provence.
Or
Provence with the scholar.
Provence, okay. Yes. Yeah, but Provence is an AOC, but within a region. So within a region, would that be, you know, Languedoc-Roussillon? Would that be
Languedoc is likely. Could be.
Very likely, yeah.
And other wines from Mourvèdre, they are very dark.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, some, yes.
So,
also.
what else? What else could we consider straight away? You know, it seems to be it seems a silly question, but as you start thinking, what could be, what are the regions? You know, it start becoming very clear to you what you should consider, and then if you, for example, are going to say, oh, it's from Bordeaux, you know, draw an image, a tasting of a Bordeaux wine. What does it taste like? You know, if you were going to consider Bordeaux, or if you're going to consider, I don't know, Rhone, Northern Rhone or Southern Rhone, where would you be? How those wines should taste like when compared to what we have in a glass? You know, for me, every time I need to funnel a wine on a blind tasting, like this case, I start thinking, okay, if it was Bordeaux, what a Bordeaux tastes like? And what a generic Bordeaux tastes like, what a high quality Bordeaux tastes like. If it's not Bordeaux, but it looks like a Bordeaux, should I be on southwest of France? Am I in Cahors? So it's important that you start thinking, what could be, where am I, what are the characteristics? And if you think, oh, I'm definitely in Burgundy, what a Burgundy red wine tastes like? What does it smell like? Is there any, does it fit anything within a Burgundy wine? So it's important that you have this sort of way of thinking, analyzing the regions and having a profile tasting of those regions, so you can be more, so you can have a more accurate argument to prove that this wine is coming from that region. Because here, you know that those wines are coming from France. You need to pinpoint either region, an AOC, or even a grape variety. Does anybody would you like to share your thoughts on the red wine, the wine number 5? Just share your tasting notes.
You mean the whole analysis?
Yeah, the whole analysis. Yeah.
Okay.
I could,
Go
if
ahead,
Ligia
Luis.
won't, because
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
now I noticed. So rarely I have the time to do the tasting before the class, so.
Mm.
I found it to be medium ruby,
Mhm.
medium plus intensity of aromas. Some hints of fresh grass, black pepper, licorice. In the mouth, dry, medium plus acidity. I salivated a lot.
Mhm.
Fine tannins, medium tannins. I found the tannins to be really ripe and pleasant, well integrated. High alcohol, medium body, and here I was really in doubt between medium and medium plus because of the alcohol content, but the concentration of fruit is more the heaviness of it in the mouth made me choose medium. Medium plus intensity of flavors also, but I felt more fruit in the mouth, like blackberries and blueberries and cherries, cedar and smoke, and a medium finish with some bitterness at the back of the mouth.
Mhm.
And I would say drink now, because even though it could age because it has a medium plus acidity and it has tannins, high alcohol, and a medium body, I think it would stand and maybe even gain some complexity, but it would lose this fruit flavor that is so pleasant in combination with the secondary flavors.
Mhm.
So I would say drink now, and my quality assessment goes towards a very good wine
Mhm.
because I found it to be very well balanced. And even though it doesn't have a very long finish, it does have some length on the mouth.
Mm.
It does have a lot of intensity of flavors and aromas, complexity, and fine tannins. So I think it's a very good wine.
Yeah, it has this on the finish. I love this blueberry and blackberry flavors, but then it goes drying out, becomes very dry and tannic. So with I love the way that you have described the wine. There is something for me that it's not part of the story. So you're saying it's high alcohol. For me, it
I
doesn't
would
taste like a high alcohol.
I
Could be
think
wrong.
it tastes more like a medium alcohol, but it's so warm in the mouth that in the end, having to choose because you don't have medium plus alcohol.
Could that be something related to the quality? You know, you could perhaps say, oh, it's medium alcohol, but because of the integration of the alcohol, I would rather make this
Okay.
wine very good as opposed to outstanding.
Okay.
And with the way that you have described the
Good point.
wine, does it ring you any bell? Is there any grape variety there? Is there any region there?
Yes. I think it is Syrah because of the general fruit character, the intensity of the fruit, and also these hints of black pepper, because black pepper, it's something I pointed out because it was more obvious and straightforward in the beginning. but it does have this how do you say it's all of these spices. Or maybe I even thought, I think it's from the Rhone, but northern Rhone. It's not such a warm climate.
If you're going to say northern Rhone, where within northern Rhone are you? Is it Côte-Rôtie? Is it Saint-Joseph? Is it Hermitage? Is it Cross Hermitage?
No, I don't think it's it's something so. It's not from such a prestigious appellation, I think.
So the less prestigious appellation would be Cross Hermitage. Until you'd probably go into Cross Hermitage.
Yes.
Right. Good. Okay. Good call. At least you have an argument to place there. But there are other things for you to consider. Guys, does anybody agree or disagree with Eloise's way of tasting the wine and where she's and how she's pointing out to Rhone as opposed to other regions?
I disagree. I agree with most of the valuation, but I think it's medium alcohol. That's it. And the finish I think is just medium. But for the evaluation of the grape variety and the region, in the mouth I felt more herbal notes like basil, bay leaves, and there are also black fruits, blueberry and black plum, but it's more for me less spicy and more herbal, both in the mouth and in the nose. So when I tasted it, I felt this combination of notes reminds me of a wine from Loire, a Cabernet Franc from Loire, because of the herbal notes and a little. It doesn't have a lot of body.
What else? What else leads you to Loire? Because if you say,
the high acidity, and the medium alcohol.
It's important that when you are going to place a wine somewhere, never say, oh, because it smells like a bell pepper, it's therefore from Syrah. You've got to use the structure and relate the structure to the climate, or some texture to soil, and that soil is very specific to that particular region. You've got to use a way of saying, you've got to use a way of using every single element from this wine to place somewhere. So if you're going to say it's from the Loire, what are the key elements that leads you to Loire? High acidity. Okay, Bordeaux wines have high acidity. Bingo. Can only Loire have high acid wines?
No.
Okay, but anyway, you've got to build an argument. You've got to build a case. I just proved to you that you're wrong. It's not from Loire because of the high acidity. What else can you use as an argument to say it's coming from Loire? What else?
It doesn't look like for me that is a wine that is a blend. So it lacks a little bit of body in the.
If you're thinking it's from Loire, what are the red grape varieties?
Just Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc, a little bit of Pinot Noir.
If it's a Cabernet Franc, what are the elements that you can get from this wine that you would place in Loire? And if you're going to place in Loire, when about are you in Loire? Is it Bourgueil? Is it Chinon? Where are you?
That's too much.
No, it's not too much.
No, for me it is.
No, it's not. You've got to pick it up. There is a lot of things here for you to build a case.
Okay, so I would go for the fact that I feel it's not a blend because it lacks some grape that would give more body.
Okay.
And for the acidity also, and this style of aromas that would resemble me grapes like Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc.
Okay.
That's
But you've got
all
a
the way I
link.
can go.
You've got a link. You've got to say, because it's medium plus aroma intensity is in line with Cabernet Franc, which is a semi-aromatic grape variety.
Okay.
Because of the blueberries and cherries and plums, that is in line, is characteristic found in Cabernet Franc. The high acidity and the medium tannins, quite fine grained, is also a characteristic of Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. The moderated alcohol, you can say medium, but you can use the word moderated. The moderated alcohol combined with the high acidity is in line with the cool climate from the lower appellations. Also, the what would I say? The I don't want to use short finish because that can be pejorative, but you can say there's the less generosity of the finish is in line with.
It lacks concentration. It lacks concentration in the finish.
But I mean, define concentration, because even a cru Beaujolais has concentration when compared to an entry-level Beaujolais. But the concentration of a cru Beaujolais will never resemble the concentration of a Grand Cru Pinot Noir. So be careful when you use the concentration, because within certain regions, the concentration can vary. You cannot compare the concentration of one region from another region and so on. But perhaps if you can say that the less given or the low the generosity of the finish is in line with a cool climate wines from the lower. So everything that you're using from your arguments, from your tasting note, needs to be used to build a case for the lower. You can also say that for me, there is a use of old oak to this wine, and perhaps 10% of a new oak, something like that. I could be wrong. And that is in line with how they make wines in the Loire. Because in the Bordeaux, they would use brand new oak, and in Burgundy, brand new oak. And even in the Rhône, the better appellations of Rhône, they would use new oak.
But so couldn't this be, going in the line of Eloise, couldn't this be a Côte du Rhône from the northern part? Because we have some, if you get a good producer, I had the other day De La Nef. It was it was pretty good. It had a lot of concentration. It was a good vintage and all that. I by chance know it's not from Rhône because I saw the cork, unfortunately, but I didn't think it was the one it is. Because on the contrary, I'm not sure if this region, it has to be 100%, or if we can have for 15% of Cabernet Sauvignon. So there goes what Leigh just said. But what Eloise said, maybe it could be, couldn't it? A Syrah from Côte du Rhône, something like that. Despite, I agree that the acidity is the only point that places it a little bit in a different region.
I think the alcohol is one giver for you to go and say, it's definitely not from further south, it's further north. I think there is another key element. Every time I taste a wine from Northern Rhône, those wines, they're very peppery. And for me, they have a sort of an animal or cured meat attached to the wine. It doesn't matter whether it's a wine that is like has just been bottled, or is a wine that has been bottled 10 years earlier. All those wines, they're usually very spicy to me, less fruit and a lot more spicy. And I get a lot more fruit from this wine. And I agree with the bay leaf and stuff. I also get graphite, which is graphite for me is it's between smoke, is between oak, but it's definitely not oak. It's definitely not oak because it's not sweet. But it's definitely no minerality because I don't get this concrete to the wine or this sort of a elements that I associate with minerality. Then I place in graphite. And the graphite for me sometimes it's not just aromas, it's more of a palette. It makes the wine more broader. So and I get it sometimes, and I get from a few regions. This wine, I was going to expect a lot more fruit, a lot more youngness, youthfulness to the wine, and it's not that. It's the totally opposite to what I was going to expect from that region. But for me, the medium plus intensity of aromas is one giver. The high acidity, the tannins, is another giver because it leads me to a more cooler region. Makes sense? No?
For me, it makes sense because one of the things that I thought that if it was a Syrah, if it was from Rome, it would have to be from northern Rome because it's not from a very warm region. So I think your reasoning has a lot of.
Shall we taste the second wine so we can taste different climatic conditions? Just taste the second wine and compare them. See how it sits in your palate. Start by the aromas. So big and broad. So full, so round.
Smells like rubber for me.
And it could definitely be a blend because it's so round, so complete. And this other, it's like the body is here, but the tannins are there, the acidity is big, and the flavors are there, and then they go away and become very tannic and very dry. And the second finish quite fruity, and then it go and become very herbal. Make sense? No? Okay. Let's go back to the first wine. For me, the wine is medium plus intensity. It has these plummy characteristics, these blueberries, this blue fruit. In Brazil, they have a blue fruit called João Bolão.
João Bolão?
João Bolão. In the south of Brazil, they look like an olive, a black olive, very big and very tannic, but it's blue. Yeah, I used to study in a school in the south of Brazil, a German school in the south of Brazil, and I was the only one from São Paulo, so they used to call me, "Oh, Paulista." Nobody knew my name, and they used to throw me that fruit and to stain my shirt and stuff. But it smelled like that. And then they have this sort of a graphite and a little black fruit and red fruit at the same time. It's quite floral. The wine should open up and become floral, meaning dry violets, dry roses. You should be able to pick it up like a dry roses, dry floral notes. Not young, more in a dry style, like a dying floral. And then it's a dry wine, medium body. It locks something into the body. The body goes away and becomes tannic, like a medium, maybe to medium plus. It's just the sensation is so grainy, so aggressive, so grainy, so there. Moderated alcohol, but I agree. I feel the alcohol is not well integrated. Maybe it's something that I could mention on a quality assessment, but it's medium. I would say 13%. It's a medium fruit concentration, medium finish, but the finish is not complex. The finish is not long. the finish becomes drier and then drier and gives you a little bit of graphite at the very end, and then it becomes tannic and dry. So I think the sensation of climatic condition here is about the tannins and about the fruit. It's a berry fruit. We did not mention, we mentioned berry fruit, like a blueberry, like a blackberries. That's how it tastes like. A little bit of plums, you know, like a wild plums. It doesn't taste very oaky, but there is a little bit of oak here that adds some broadness to the wine, like old oak, just to hold up the wine a little bit, like a post-fermentation for 6 months before bottling, just to open up, just to reduce and help to reduce the aggressiveness of the oak. It's not to add aromas and flavors, but mainly to make the wine slightly more broader, less reductive because of the tannins. If you don't have any oxygen, micro-oxygenation, it could become very reductive. So that's one way of keeping the wine slightly more fluid, more aromatic in a way. I think the wine is very good. I understand it's coming from a cool climate. I understand it has those berry flavors. It's semi-aromatic. It has good structure. Is it going somewhere? No. Is it tasty now? Is it drinking now? Yeah, it drinks now. Can it hold for a year and a half? It can hold for an year and a half. If I have in my shop, if I have in my adega, yeah. Would I bet that this wine will get better? Definitely not. It could be a little bit more integrated, the tannins. But as the wine ages, perhaps the alcohol would be more and more evident, become more and more evident. You know, if you can fix one side but not fix the other side, the alcohol is not going to integrate it. If the alcohol is going to get better, it should be better at the very beginning, right behind when it was bottled. Nevertheless, let's review the wine so we know what we're tasting, what we're talking about. Jesus. Gosh.
Where is that?
Right. Very good. So, Ligia, explain yourself.
Actually, yesterday I tasted a Bourgueil, so.
Right. So why is she non Bourgueil? You see,
The body, I think.
You see, it's important that you get all the wines that we are tasting all the time wrong. It's very important that you get them wrong. Eloise, you did a tremendous work. It's important that you get it wrong. Because next time you get this wine, you are able to say, uh-oh, it's definitely not coming from another Rhone.
To tell you the truth, I don't know if I have ever tasted anything red from the Loire. And when you said Chinon, I have no idea where Chinon is. So I'm okay with the description being quite right.
Look, the more wrong that you get, the more that you learn.
Yes.
The more that you're mistaken, the more that you learn, because you make notes to yourself.
I've never heard of that I'm going to study, so it's good.
But, good. But if you get something right, Ligia, now you got to understand how to make it better. Okay? So you are able to reach a grape variety. Okay, I know it's coming from Loire. I know it's Cabernet Franc. Where am I? And where am I within quality levels? And you should be able to link every single element from the wine tasting to place somewhere. So what's the difference between Chinon and Bourgueil?
Sometimes they're the same.
The area is just
location.
like the same.
Yeah. Think location.
Yeah, one is south, the north.
Okay. And what difference can that impact to the wine?
So Chinon would have riper fruit because Bourgueil is north, right?
So Bourgueil, that's the river. That's the river. North means cooler, south means warmer. Burguel, yeah, a little bit, but that makes difference. Burguel, it's slightly more fuller, slightly more concentration of flavors. Perhaps the tannins would fit or feel slightly less aggressive. There could be a little bit of oak to Burguel. And Burguel, sometimes they have a much more, how can I say, more intensity of aromas. When I think of Chinon, I think of wines that slightly more, I hate to use the word gastronomic, but they're more vertical, more acidic, lesser body, lesser alcohol, and slightly more tannic. They ask for food. The tannins sometimes are quite astringent or rustic. That's how I see Chinon when compared to Burguel, which is slightly more bigger and pleasure.
Yeah, they looks like rounder now when you taste the Burguel. Have more body.
There are some great Chinons. There's some really
They're
good
amazing.
Chinons.
Yes.
Yeah. But isn't that, is it Bourguet or the other one? Saint something Bourguet. There's another one that's nearby that's more
Saumur?
fresher, lighter, fruitier. I don't remember the name.
It's Saumur
No. It's something Bourguet. There's a middle name Bourguet. It's something close nearby.
Yeah.
But doesn't it have more to do with the soil than because it's like right over there. I'm not sure. I'm gonna...
Right over there. Saint Nicolas de Bourguel. Right over there.
Good. Yeah.
When you say it's just right over there, it doesn't make much difference. So think of let me give you a good example. Think of Sauternes, and right over there, the other side of the river, think of the sweet wines coming just on the other side of the river.
Yeah, I just thought it was about the soil, but anyway.
Right over there. So it does make a difference. I think it would be interesting for you to taste wines from, for example, Delacroix, the importer. They have Chinon, they have Burguel. Buy the two wines and taste side by side. And next time you're going to argue for a region, and it doesn't matter if you're wrong. You could be wrong here and say, oh no, I think it's Burguel because of all of this. The way that you try to convince the examiner, you give you at least 50 or 60% of the points, because you could be right in most of them. You know, some regions, they share many things in common. Some wines, they share many things in common. And all of that will add you and give you points. But the point here, the learning curve here, Ligia, is how do you use acidity to link to climate, tannins to link to climate, aromatic intensities to grape variety, the characteristics of the aromas to the grape variety, the alcohol level to the climate, the flavor intensity and the lack of integration of alcohol to the quality of the wine. That's the point. And that's something that you need to polish yourself to get there. Right. How about the next wine? What can we say about the next wine? Who would you like to share your thoughts on the second wine to me? Anyone?
Thiago, I will not describe it because I described the first, but the first thoughts that came to my mind, to tell you the truth, and it was from, not from France, but from some place in California, affected by...
That's a good call.
From California. That's the impact I had.
That's a very good call. Very good.
The first smell, for me, it was really weird because it reminded me of burned rubber. Something maybe charred wood or caramel, almost.
Caramel, yeah.
Caramel. So it was a little weird in the beginning.
Okay, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. What are the grape varieties that, or regions that probably have these sort of characteristics?
Yeah, I would say I thought about the same way, Louisa, and I thought it looks like a wine from south, from either Provence or Languedoc-Roussillon, that has this fruity characteristic and some wood to round it up.
Right. Okay. So, would you like to comment on the wine from the appearance all the way through the quality?
I can if nobody wants to. Okay. So it's a medium ruby with a medium plus intensity and aromas of black fruit, mainly black fruits like black plum, blackberry, and some raspberry, and caramel, vanilla, and licorice. And in the palate is a dry wine with medium plus acidity and medium plus tannins, and they are soft tannins, medium alcohol, a medium plus body, and a medium plus flavor intensity of black fruits also in the mouth and the palate, and black currants, blackberry, some pepper, and also dry herbs like thyme, basil. And at the end, a smoke characteristic that's not from wood. Is a medium finish. And it finishes with a really fruity taste. And for me, it's a good wine, not suitable for barrel aging, and it's well balanced with the acidity is very well balanced with the tannins and the fruit taste. And the finish is a medium herbal finish. It resembles me, like Luisa said, a wine that looks like a California wine with this fruity and also the wood that for me looks like a Languedoc-Roussillon wine.
Good. That's a very good comment.
Some Syrah.
Okay, so, if you're going to go there, you can argue that what can you use as an argument to go all the way to Languedoc-Roussillon, to south of France? What are the first elements that you can use on your argument?
It comes from a warmer climate. It's the acidity is lower. It is definitely lower than the first wine. It looks like a blended wine because it has. Okay, no, that's not it.
No, you need to argue that this wine is coming from south of France, Languedoc-Roussillon. What are the key elements that justify this wine coming from a warm climate?
The fruit, the really fruits of aromas and the ripe fruits and the acidity that's not very high. So it's from a warmer region in France.
Yeah, it's important that you use all the structure, everything that you have within your tasting note to justify warm climate. I would start by saying, all these jammy aromas of red fruit jam and black fruit jam leads me to a warm climate, such as, I could say south of Rhone or south of France, such as Languedoc-Roussillon. But I'm not going to just go there. I'm going to funnel. I need to compare with other regions. Then, it's a wine that is fuller body. Where are the regions that I get really full body wines? Languedoc-Roussillon is south of Rhone. Okay. The 14% alcohol also is in line with, the high alcohol. You don't need to say 14, but the high alcohol level. It's also in line with wines from those two regions. The moderated acidity, medium plus, along with the high amount of tannins, although soft. And for me, although they're fine grainy, they have a sort of a ashy. Have you ever heard the terminology ashy? Like an ashtray, but ash, we say ash. You know, wines, some wines, we use this, we classify as ashy. The wine is quite ashy, dusty. Dusty is a negative thing. But ashy it describes a wine that is between fine grains and soft. So I find this wine quite ashy. The tannins are
Thiago,
quite ashy. Go on, Bruno.
but it's a terminology specific to tannins.
Yeah,
Ashy,
yeah.
but you
ash.
can it's a pejorative adjective if you say it the wine, the tannins are dusty.
Yeah, it could be negative. Like a dusty is like a using, you know, the end of the barrel, the end of the barrel.
That's more or less how I would describe. I was surprised when you started talking about the tannins, because they are grainy, but they are coarse.
Yeah.
The ashy and grainy are totally different textures. Ashy is cinza.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grainy is more grainy, has a little bit more texture than ashy.
Not necessarily green. Grainy is from grains.
Yeah.
Is when you can feel like you can mastigar.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it is grainy, but it's ashy. I think it describes well, but they are quite coarse. They're not very round and soft.
Yeah.
And,
But look,
you know,
when you think of ash, you see a lot of grains, little details there, but in some way it's quite soft, the ash. But they're there, you can see all the flakes. So what I did note fine grains. I have here fine grains, but it is somehow soft. Then it comes to me flake, and then I link into ashy. So, you know, it's very personal. I would rather go and say ashy as opposed to say grainy, because grainy can also mean astringent and green and unpleasant. I think that the tannins are pleasant somehow. It gives a structure to the wine and frame to the wine. They're muscular, they're big, but they're not soft. You know what I mean? They're not soft.
They're not soft. They are sturdy.
Sturdy, yeah, but they're polished. If you say sturdy, yeah, but it's somehow polished. And that's why I would say that perhaps ashy is somehow a positive way of saying that they're flaky, it's soft, but you know, if it was coming from Napa Valley, I would definitely say, you know, it's quite soft, because they are generous and soft, but here they're not that soft. So it's full body. Go on, Bruno.
The last thing about the tannins. For me, they are quite sticky.
Sorry,
it's
I
like
didn't hear.
It's like they are gluing.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of texture. Yeah,
it's quite different.
And that's why I said grainy. I try to get into soft, but I don't think it's soft. And that's why I try to describe as ashy, from ash. So it's a generous wine. You know, it is clearly coming from. Let me get my charger to the computer. Hold on a second. Amor, eu tenho paninho, eu derrubei vinho no meu no keyboard. Obrigado. Acho que já secou. Você não quer secar já? Right, I'm back. So it is a full-on wine, and now the tricky is, where do we place it? What are the regions and the wines that could be similarly to this style wine?
Southwest France.
Southwest of France. Some wines in southwest of France, they can be quite rustic, like a cahors. Okay, that's a good call. But this wine smells and tastes like a lot more warmer than southwest of France.
I would go for Languedoc.
Okay.
And I don't even remember what grapes are allowed there, but anyway.
Okay. Do you guys have any sort of tip within your tasting notes that could point you to one or two grape variety? Because we know that we are dealing with a blended wine, right?
And for me, it has a little bit of Syrah.
Yeah.
How do you point to Syrah?
The kind of the spicy note, and it's not it.
Black fruit.
Okay. I often get wines made in the warm climate from Syrah by the term licorice. Every time I spot a wine that has a licorice aroma, I go into Syrah. Also, black olives. Black olives is a characteristic of warm climate Syrah. So I get Syrah coming from Barossa Valley. The licorice note is in line with Barossa Valley. Black olives is in line with Syrah from Barossa, from many regions. So for me, it's not black pepper. It's the licorice that leads me to Syrah. Make sense?
Is it the same licorice that you find in Piedmont?
Yeah.
Barolo? The same one?
No, in Piedmont, I don't get licorice.
Well, I got licorice in the first wine.
In the first one. Okay. So licorice, it's a spice that I often get from wines coming from really warm climate, and mainly Syrah. So that's one key element for me that I use to guide myself, and I use as an argument to say it's definitely Syrah, or could point me to Syrah. Then all the tannins leads me to Syrah, because Syrah is a grape variety that has a lot of tannins, but not just that.
It could be a little bit of Mourvèdre to give a little bit more of tannins.
Yes. What else apart from Mourvèdre? What the other grape varieties that could be?
For me, because of the kind of high alcohol content, leads me to a little bit of Grenache.
Mm-hmm.
It could be.
So the high alcohol could be an indication for Grenache. So the high alcohol could be an indication from Grenache. What else? What else does Grenache add to the blend itself? Is there any other thing?
Red fruit.
Red fruit.
Red fruit. I hate red fruit, I felt.
Okay, so were you able to add any aromas and flavors that you can link to Grenache? Because remember, you are in a diploma level, you can't say red fruit, you've got to say something.
Cherries.
I don't get cherries, I get jam. Red fruit jam.
For me, a red cherry jam or sort of, or strawberry jam.
If you wrote that down, link that to Grenache, for example. What else can you add to Grenache? Can you say that the full body is led by Grenache? The Grenache has somehow the
Higher
full
alcohol.
body, you know, the high alcohol and the full body is an indication that Grenache was perhaps part of the blend.
Yeah. And also there is a typical note of Grenache that is the cocoa note that I felt on my mouth.
The cocoa note is probably oak as opposed to Grenache.
I felt coffee at first.
So
The
coffee
smell
is,
of coffee.
yeah, but coffee is often used to describe oak. If you're going to say Mourvèdre, what would you expect from Mourvèdre to this blend?
Full body tannic wine is deep in color.
What else?
Structure,
High acidity.
blackberries, blueberries, black
More color.
currant,
Does he has really high acid?
herbal notes.
Herbal
Garrigue
notes. I often get Mourvèdre as a herbal notes. I don't get the herbal notes or like any sort of pyrazine or anything like that from this wine. Do you guys get it? Is there any hint of greenness to the wine? So if you
Greenness,
do,
no.
if you do get a greenness, if you
More
do
like
get
a balsamic
herbal,
notes.
the balsamic is definitely not a grape variety. Balsamic is a winemaking technique. So,
Yeah, but that's what I felt.
what I'm saying, if you think there could be Mourvèdre, what are the indications from your tasting note that it could be blended by this grape variety?
The wine is, it's round. It's kind of it's full in the mouth. It's a tannic wine.
Is it from bottle aging, or is it from the grape variety itself?
It's more from the grape variety.
Okay, so are you saying that Mourvèdre makes a brown wines, or are you saying that Mourvèdre that there is no Mourvèdre, it's just wine?
I definitely think that Mourvèdre has something in this wine. I don't know. I think it's a blend for me, but it also has some Syrah, and for me Syrah and Mourvèdre, they are present.
So you're saying is GSM? Yes. Is that what you're saying? Okay,
maybe so GSM, but it can have a little bit of Sanso or Carignan because it's very typical from.
Okay, you see, be very careful because you should play somewhere. If you think it's a generic wine, you say it's Languedoc-Roussillon. If it's a good wine, where within the Languedoc or the Roussillon would you place it? Is it La Clappe? Is it Fougères? Where is it coming from? Does it have a sense of place within the south of France? Because, you know, south of France, there are far too many appellations. Is it Bandon? Is it Corbière? Where is it coming from?
Malepé, Minervois, Picpoud, Pinet.
Yeah.
Saint-Pignon.
Where would you place
it? It could be Languedoc.
Yeah, the only thing
instead of being Rhône,
right?
Then we will get to Jamie and etc. So
are we talking about quality?
I know.
Where are you within quality?
It's a good wine.
For me, it's a good wine.
Is it good or very good?
Just good.
When compared to the previous wine, is it better? Is it lower? Or is it equal?
It has more generosity than the previous one, so it looks like a more pleasant wine.
Elegance. It lacks elegance.
Look, the generosity comes with the region, right? Comes with the sunshine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generosity comes with the sunshine. Yeah. So, is there anything that leads you to either soil? When you are in a warm climate, okay, let me put it this way. When you're buying a wine that cost you 35 reais, what are you expecting? I'm expecting flavor, I'm expecting balance, and I'm expecting the wine is at least balanced, right? It could be off dry, but it needs to smell of something and taste like something. That's what I'm expecting. When I'm expecting a Grand Cru wine, a really expensive wine that is vintage 2000 and I don't know 19, it's really tannic, it's really high acid, you know, and it's definitely not ready, but it's big and bold. It's not ready to drink. You've got to expect something. What I do expect, if it was from South of France, entry level, I was expecting that this wine was rather soft and easy to please. And this wine is not soft and easy to please. It's not generic. We get different flavors and aromas, and it's not generic. It doesn't finish sweet. It finished quite herbal to this wine. Savory somehow. It's very Frenchy. It's very savory. It should give you a sense of place. And if you are able to pick it up, the grape varieties, then you can place somewhere if you know the appellations. Obviously, I don't know all the appellations. We are not going to know the appellations and what the blends rules for every single appellation. I don't know. You know, I'm not specialist for South of France, you know, Languedoc-Roussillon, but the fact that you are able to place South of France, it's amazing. If you are able to place somewhere, it's amazing and believable. However, you should be able to explain the quality level. So if you say it's Languedoc-Roussillon, that's generic. If you say it's Languedoc, oops, that's a plus. If you're able to place somewhere within one of the AOCs, that's amazing. Okay, so it's important that you're able to say, you know, this is not acceptable, this is not good, it is at least very good. Thiago, I wouldn't argue for outstanding. Why? It lacks a little bit of definition, it lacks a little bit of elegance. For a wine coming from a warm climate, I'm expecting freshness. Okay? On level 3, WSET level 3, we taste Robert Mondavi most of courses, okay? At least Oakville, you know, a wine that costs a lot of money, we taste on level 3 in São Paulo. There's a lot of freshness to that wine, a lot of freshness. 14% alcohol and a lot of freshness. And it's coming from a very warm climate. Compared to this wine, yeah, same level of sunshine, heat. If I'm coming from a cru, I was expecting a lot more freshness. That's why I'm coming from outstanding to very good. But if I'm going from very good to good, I wasn't going to expect a lot of definitions from aromas and flavors. I'm not talking about how long does it last. I'm talking about the definition, because from a warm climate, it's very easy to get a wine that becomes very jammy and it doesn't taste like a nothing, just sweetness. If you think of all the wines coming from a very generic wines like Yellowtail, the entry-level Casileiro del Diablo, coming from warm regions, a blend from warm regions. They taste sweet and they taste of black fruit. And over here, we said peppery, we said plum, we said licorice, we said vanilla, we said herbs. So it did mention different things that is in line within an appellation. I don't know which, but it is in line within an appellation. You know, there is definitely oak here. If you have a generic wine, a simple wine, you wouldn't use oak, would you? Where is your critical thinking behind it? And that's important. Maybe you may think, oh, that's a good wine. Okay, if it's a good wine, it's probably generic. If it's very good, it's probably coming from an appellation. What makes a wine coming from any appellation here? The fact that we are able to have at least 5 or 6 aromas and flavors to this wine. And we do have it, don't we? It's probably not a cru because it doesn't have the freshness and the precision and everything that I would be expecting from a cru, La Clap, for example. But it's probably from an appellation within a region. And that probably makes it very good as opposed to good.
Thiago,
Makes sense, the argument. Makes sense, the way of thinking.
Thiago,
Go on.
have you ever heard about they doing micro vinification in Languedoc?
A lot. There's a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Or carbonic maceration?
A lot as well as. But
They're doing everything down there.
Yeah.
Look. No.
Look.
It's
Do you
cheaper to buy the land. It's
I'm-
good to
I'm
make
going-
the wine. They're doing
Okay.
everything.
I'm
Guys.
going to be more specific about this wine.
Go on.
For me, this wine either is micro, there's some micro vinification here,
Mhm.
or there's some carbonic maceration, because
Yeah.
there's the generosity of fruity or jammy. It's almost undrinkable for me.
I think it's a delicious wine. I think it's delicious. Forget South of France. Think of Bordeaux. Let's think for a moment for Bordeaux. Okay? Forget South of France. Think of Bordeaux region. Acceptable wines are wines that cost you €2. Good wines, they're usually Bordeaux AOC, Bordeaux sort of okay, how do you say
Bordeaux Supérieur.
Bordeaux Supérieur, the reserve wines, or some very minimal appellations outside left bank and right bank. Like a mountain house, the mountain regions within like La Lande de Pomerol, for example, you know, in some ways. Those are more or less maybe good in some years, very good, but not really outstanding. But the majority of the cru wines from the appellations like Margaux, like a Pauillac, those are at least very good because they are one quality level above all the generic wines. I don't get this wine that we are tasting from South of France, generic. That's one of the reasons why I cannot agree with good. I think it's at least very good for the complexity of aromas and flavors. That's where I would be. If all the wines coming from South of France are priced €2, I think that this wine tastes at least €4 within quality level.
But Thiago, then we go, it's the same story with the point system. If it's a very good wine, considering where it comes from, that's something. But if it's a very good wine, comparing with the super Bloster, Bordeaux or Le Grand Cru or whatever, or a very good Pinot Noir, I mean, it's not fair. So again, thinking about diploma test exam specifically, do we consider is it always the same for every wine or not? So if it's a very good Languedoc,
yeah, it's always the same.
And you
It's a
still
very
would put it
good-
as a very good, as a
Yeah.
very good wine.
I think it doesn't have the beauty and the elegance, but it has a little bit of a complexity to the aromas and a little bit of complexity to the flavors. And the round and a little of a polishment to the tannins, which for me, and the alcohol, did any of you get the alcohol unpleasant as opposed to the first wine? I think the first wine, the alcohol, which is much lower, was there. I mean, you were able to taste the alcohol and it was disjointed. And over here, the alcohol is well integrated, isn't it? The alcohol is integrated. For one region, it's it's difficult to get the alcohol well integrated. I mean, for a cooler, much cooler climate, which is the first wine, the alcohol wasn't that integrated. And over here, the alcohol is integrated. Isn't that a good thing? That is a good thing. For a warm climate, getting freshness is hard. Do you get acidity? You do. Okay, it could be added. Yeah. But isn't that easy to make a wine that tastes like a sweet? Or has a very good, very detectable fruit flavor for a warm climate? Yes. But you have definition of flavor. That's a good thing. It means that you are able to harvest the grapes in a very precise time where you're able to get all the phenolics without the loss of the acidity, which is a good thing. Anyway, my argument for this wine is that the wine is very good because of the balance, the integration, the definition of the flavors, the definition of aromas, the definition of the grape varieties. We were able to spot the grape varieties. Shall we uncover the wine and review the wine? Right. It was hard to find a wine like this within a price point that we were able to fit here. So we were talking about a wine that is called Perfume de Schist. It's a wine that comes from a specific soil that has schist that could justify the high acidity. It's coming from a cru within the Languedoc-Roussillon. It's called Fougères. It's an appellation that only allows Syrah, Grenache, and a minor note of Muvet, but the majority is Grenache and Syrah. I thought that it was a wine that would we could perhaps mistake for Southern Rhone, but not. I mean, it didn't have the peppery enough, perhaps the freshness enough to be South of France, Southern Rhone. But hey, we were able to place it straight away into South of France, which is amazing. And it's coming from a cru, which is Fougères. It's not a GSM. There is no Mourvèdre. There's only Grenache and Syrah, which is a common blend. But it pretty much tastes like a wine coming from the how do you say? That region that covers South of France and Spain. How do you say?
Roussillon?
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean. It tastes very Mediterranean. This spiciness to the finished palate, to the final of the palate. It's very herbal. If you are going to compare with a wine coming from anywhere within south of Spain, you would finish sweet. But over here, it finishes very, very spicy and herbal. It's important, if you are tasting a Mediterranean wine, the way that you spot coming from Spain versus France, France would be a lot more herbal, and Spanish wines would be a lot more fruitier and jammier and sweeter. you know, get this wine and open, I don't know, Priorat wine. The finish of a Priorat will be a lot more sweeter than this wine. If you get a wine coming, I don't know, get any wine coming from, or the Torres wines coming, you know, from Barcelona, that region, they will finish a lot more sweeter than this wine. This wine, always Languedoc-Roussillon, the French wines, will finish a lot more herbal than anything else. If you're having a wine, a New World, I don't know, get a Syrah from Barossa, McLaren Vale, they'll be a lot sweeter than this wine. This wine is very herbal when compared to the other wines. It's important that you pay attention to the little details, because those little details will help you to build a case to say, I'm in south of France.
I was reading over here, Fougère is the first time I tasted Fougère.
Really?
And it's one of the, it's one of the 6 crus from Languedoc, although cru is not something that is actually official. So anyway,
that's fine.
But amazing.
When they say a cru, they're saying, you know, we understand that this region makes quality wines different than other regions. Within the crus, there could be specific vineyards. The producers will name it because, you know, marketing things or, you know, any other thing. But the most important here is that you are able to get a definition of aromas and flavors and some freshness somehow. So those are reasons why Fougères, La Clappe, and other regions, Mini-Villars, makes those wines so special. Makes those wines so special is about the freshness and the definitions of aromas and flavors. It's not very popular.
Price of this? Here in Brazil, do you remember the price of this specific one?
I think it's about 150, 160, 100 and more about 180 to 90, something like that.
I think these tastes made me realize how much my first impression can be a problem when I am evaluating a wine, because I didn't like it at all from the start. So there's a lot of little things I missed because I didn't like it. And that's a good lesson to learn. I was thinking that maybe this rubbery aroma that I felt could be something influenced by the kind of soil.
Look, when I tasted those 2 wines, because I often taste all the wines before I put it together into the box. What I thought about was like, you know, I'm getting 2 wines from 2 different, very, very far apart regions and climatic conditions. That what I wanted from you is that you were able to pick it up that, you know, the first wine was coming from a very cooler, much cooler influence climate as opposed to the second. And it's important because sometimes the wines are not that far apart. So you should be able to pick it up climatic differences from wines. Those 2 wines are very obvious. If they're not to you, taste them again tomorrow. The acidity and the texture of the tannin should be the giver to you. Okay, you should be able to pick that up. Acidity, tannins, and alcohol.
Yes, the climatic difference is easy to spot.
Yeah, that was the first giver to you. Then the second wine is much round and fuller, complete, leading to a blend. The first one was like is missing body, is missing flavors, is missing layers, 1 grape variety. You know, and then you think, what are the grape varieties that if you are able to spot a region, what are the grape varieties? Oh, Cabernet Franc, is in line with Cabernet Franc? Can I use all those key points to justify Cabernet Franc? And if I'm able to, where within the Loire Valley do I get this? When you get into the second wine, for me, it's more about, does it has any beauty? Does it has any complexity? Does it has
complexity, but no beauty at all?
okay, but when you compare, you know,
I think it's a dark wine in a way. You know, if I had to.
One of the reasons why I'm so frustrated to be based in Brazil. One of the reasons why I'm so frustrated is because when I was back in London, I was able to go to a tasting from the Languedoc-Roussillon region and taste like hundreds of wine, one side by side, and see that within the Languedoc-Roussillon, there are wines that are just here. And then you are able to taste this wine and say, that's so beautiful. When you are able to compare within a long range of wines from the same region, then you would taste this wine and say, wow, there's freshness and beauty here when compared to all the other wines. So if you're saying that this wine is not that beautiful, it's because you haven't tasted the others.
Okay.
And that's frustrating. And that's very frustrating because you are unable to see everything that the region can produce. So once we go back into the classroom for the D3, we should be able to taste like 6 or 7 wines from the same region or even more, if you are able to get them in Brazil. So, and that should give you an overview of quality, that should give you an overview of complexity, that should be able to give you an overview of diversity. Okay. But for a warm region, you shouldn't be expecting that freshness and definition of aromas.
Yes, that's true.
You know, because warm regions doesn't give you that. Make sense?
This was a very good tasting.
I hope you have enjoyed. Right. There are other things for the Italian, the next box. So go on, reserve your box, get delivered to your house, and then I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay?
Question, could you stop, do you want to stop?
Yeah, I will stop it right now.